Bart, you've got me like programmed now. I can't hear the word now without thinking about
Yeah.
it. So in light of what Jim was just describing of their strategy at Century, can you go through what those three letters N.O.W. stand for and pick some ways to align with what Century's doing?
Definitely. And I'm glad Jim actually started the conversation because it makes it, easier for me, right? But yeah, the N starts for networked intelligence, and you hit it right on the head. One source of truth, right? A lot of companies don't really have that intelligence end to end, right? To say, hey, I've got parts of my data, but how do I really get that one source of truth from my entire supply chain cycle that I'm controlling? The O stands for orchestrated agility, right? Because it's not just getting the data, getting the insights, but it's then what can you do with it? So something happens over the weekend. We had a fairly large event with the Israel-US strikes in Iran. Immediately that has impacts with some of the straits. They're now closed. There's no fly zone. So from an air perspective, from an ocean perspective, from a port perspective, that has huge impacts from suppliers being shut down. How do you immediately act to that? It's not good enough, I'm assuming, for you to go to a customer saying, hey, you're going to have issues with these containers. They go, well, I already knew that. You don't have to have a crystal ball to know that. But saying, here's what you should do to kind of counteract and execute based on that information. And then the W is really wide angle, called visibility, called transparency, but really being able to have kind of access to data coming from all across. And it's not just from your own supply chains, maybe from your partners, etc., to really truly build that one underlying layer of data. And that's a little bit how that mindset is different as well, because again, traditional linear supply chains kind of have that thinking of segregation of functional. And I will say, to be honest, and that's my opinion, but I would say supply chains were always a little bit of a mirage, a fallacy. I've been now in this industry for 3.5 decades. And if you look at supply chain, what it's supposed to be, a chain is a perfect connection of all these links. Remember when we were all kids and we used to ride bikes? Some of us might still ride bikes, although now it's a lot of electric bikes, especially here. But a bike, if you have a chain and there's one link that's not connected, immediately the propulsion stops and your bike's not going to move very far. So if you look at supply chain, I've never seen a company where all these links perfectly attach. So supply chain was a great idea, but it really didn't quite work because we'd never had the mindset of all of us collaborating. Now, I did see a great move forward during the start of COVID when people had to react. And I saw so many companies that every morning had meetings, bringing together all of those functions and truly collaborate. But then when we thought that COVID was over, we went back to our old ways of doing things. And that's the thing now. We shouldn't think in these linear supply chains. We really need to think as connected ecosystems. And that really requires a kind of wide angle, transparency, visibility, and how you achieve that with partners, you together with your customers, not you versus the customer or you and the customer. How do you partner with companies around that?